Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a secret, not whispered by mouths, but echoed through the stillness of solitude. The man who walks alone in silence is not lonely. He is free, free from the chaos of the crowd, free from the noise that tells him who to be, free from the pressure to perform, conform, or impress. He has chosen a different path, one where there is no applause, no audience, and no validation except the quiet approval of his own soul. And you must listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is not for everyone. This is not comfort food for the ego. It is nourishment for the spirit. Why must you watch this speech? Because one day the noise will become unbearable. The opinions will clash, and the masks will suffocate you. And you'll remember there was a path you ignored, a path of silence, solitude, and self-discovery. This speech is that path. You're not here by accident. You're here because something inside you is tired of the noise. So walk with me, but not beside me. Walk behind these words into yourself. Because the man who walks alone, in silence, has discovered something the world forgot. That in stillness, he does not rush, he observes. He does not argue, he understands. He does not cling. He lets go, because he knows silence is not weakness. It is mastery. When you walk alone, you begin to hear what can't be spoken. You begin to see what others overlook. And most terrifying of all, you begin to feel everything you once ran from. The world tells you that silence is emptiness, but it's a lie. Silence is fullness, the kind that doesn't need to shout, the kind that doesn't need to explain or convince, the kind that simply is. And in that isness, the man becomes whole. He has no tribe, no crowd, no entourage. Yet he walks with an unshakable presence, because he knows himself. And that knowledge born from silence is more powerful than any approval. In solitude, he met his fear. In silence, he confronted his chaos. In stillness, he remembered who he was before the world told him what to be. If you feel alone right now, don't rush to fill the silence. Sit with it. Walk with it. Become one with it. Because the man who walks alone in silence is not escaping the world, he is transcending it. And maybe, just maybe, it's time you did too. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness. People fear it. They try to avoid it with noise, noise from others, noise from devices, noise from their own thoughts. Yet silence is not the absence of something, but the presence of everything that truly matters. It is not a void, it is a vessel. And the man who chooses to walk alone in silence is not retreating. He is diving deeper into life than most would dare, because in silence he touches a dimension of experience the loud will never know. When a man walks in silence, he is not doing nothing, he is listening. And not just listening to the rustle of leaves or the hum of distant life. He is listening to something more ancient, more sacred. He is listening to the whisper of his own soul. The world screams at you every day, trying to define who you are, trying to shape you with its judgments, rewards, and punishments. But in silence, that voice disappears, and something else rises in its place. A knowing, a clarity that no crowd can offer. The man who walks alone in silence understands that truth doesn't come from others' opinions. It comes from within, from a space so still that even a thought feels like a disturbance. He has realized that the deepest truths are not shouted, They are revealed in the quiet moments, when the mind settles and the heart speaks. Most people are addicted to noise because silence reveals too much. It reveals the brokenness, the insecurity, the lies we tell ourselves. But the silent man does not run. He sits with it. He watches the storm within until it exhausts itself, and after the chaos he finds something unshakable. He finds peace, not the superficial peace of escape, but the grounded peace of understanding in silence. He discovers that his worth was never tied to applause, titles, or validation. It was always there, untouched and whole. The world tried to make him forget this truth, but in walking alone, in embracing the silence, he remembered. And that remembrance changed everything. To those watching from the outside, he may seem distant, aloof, even strange. They wonder why he doesn't engage in their games, why he chooses solitude over company, why he walks away from arguments instead of proving himself. What they don't see is the profound strength it takes to not respond, to not participate in the chaos. He has nothing to prove because he already knows. He doesn't need to be seen because he sees himself clearly. Silence has refined him. It has carved away the excess, stripped away the false layers, and revealed a core that is solid, still, and strong. He is not hardened, but deeply rooted. He is not indifferent, but unshaken. He walks with an awareness that cannot be taught, only earned through the quiet battles fought within. There is power in this man, not the loud, flashy kind, but a deeper power that makes others pause in his presence. They feel something, though they can't name it. It is the energy of someone who is aligned with himself, the calmness of someone who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't need to convince. He simply is. And that presence, forged in silence, is his greatest force. Silence is not emptiness. It is depth. It is the place where the soul breathes and the truth echoes. The man who walks alone, in silence, has chosen depth over distraction, substance over spectacle, truth over noise. And in doing so, he has become something the world rarely sees anymore, whole. Solitude is the highest rebellion, not because it's loud or aggressive, but because it silently defies everything the world expects you to be. In a society that thrives on constant interaction, instant communication, and public validation, choosing to walk alone is a radical act. It says, I no longer need to be seen to exist. I no longer need to be heard to matter. I no longer need to be surrounded to feel whole. The man who walks alone does not do so because he was rejected. He walks alone because he rejected the need to belong to something that no longer aligns with his soul. He looked around at the world's performance, the constant chasing, the meaningless conversations, the pressure to smile when you're broken, to speak when you don't mean it, to agree when your soul says no. And he chose another way. And that choice, though silent, is the loudest rebellion. You see, rebellion isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's stillness. Sometimes it's walking away from what everyone else runs toward. The man who embraces solitude is rebelling against distraction, against conformity, against the shallow identities forced upon him. He is no longer playing the part that was written for him. He's burning the script and listening for something real. He has realized that the noise was never freedom, it was a cage dressed up in notifications, opinions, expectations, and applause. And while others are busy comparing lives, chasing illusions, and numbing themselves with constant engagement, he has chosen the courageous route. To face himself completely, without filters, without crowd, without escape. And what makes this rebellion so powerful is its inward focus. He is not trying to prove anything to the world. His rebellion isn't about external change. It's about internal liberation. It's about saying, I will no longer be held hostage by the fear of being alone. That kind of inner stand is what truly terrifies a world that runs on attention. When a man decides to be alone, not because he has to, but because he wants to, it unsettles others. They ask, what's wrong? They worry, because they can't imagine a person finding strength in silence. But that's because they've never dared to taste the raw stillness of solitude themselves. This man has. And in that stillness he has found clarity. He has found the voice beneath all the other voices. He has found space to question what he was taught, to unlearn what was programmed, and to rebuild his identity from something authentic, something unshakable. He does not need noise to feel alive. He does not need validation to feel worthy. His sense of self does not fluctuate with the opinions of others. And that terrifies the system, because the system can't control a man who no longer needs it. A man at peace in his solitude is the freest man alive. He walks his own rhythm, follows his own light, and answers to something far deeper than social norms. He has broken the invisible chain that binds people to shallow connections and hollow conversations. He has stepped out of the crowd, not because he's above anyone, but because he refuses to lose himself in the noise. And make no mistake, this isn't loneliness. It's sovereignty. It's choosing yourself in a world that constantly asks you to choose others first. It's sitting with your thoughts until they no longer scare you. It's finding joy in your own company. It's learning that peace does not come from having people around you. It comes from being fully present with yourself. Yes. Solitude is the highest rebellion, not because it opposes the world with violence, but because it renders the world's control powerless. A man who is not afraid to be alone is a man who cannot be manipulated, cannot be seduced by surface-level distractions, and cannot be shaken by the storms of the external. He has gone within, and in doing so he has found the one thing that can never be taken, himself. Noise seeks to define you. Silence allows you to find yourself. Every day the world tries to shape who you are. It bombards you with expectations, how you should look, what you should want, who you should become. The noise is relentless. It comes from family, friends, media, culture. It creeps into your thoughts until your voice is no longer your own. And the tragedy is, most people live their entire lives never knowing the difference. But the man who walks alone in silence has chosen to step outside of that storm. He's not interested in being defined by anyone else's standards. He's grown tired of being told who to be. He no longer finds meaning in the praise or criticism of others, because he has discovered something far more valuable, his true self. The noise wants to label you. It wants to package you into something familiar, something easy to categorize. It says you are your job title, you are your relationship status, you are your achievements, you are your failures. But all of these are surface. They do not touch the depth of who you really are. And as long as you remain entangled in the noise, you will keep chasing identities that do not belong to you. Silence is different. Silence doesn't ask you to become anything. It invites you to remember who you were before the world got its hands on you, before the comparisons, before the pressure, before the fear. In silence you begin to peel away the layers, one thought, one emotion, one illusion at a time, until what's left is not a version of you. This is not an easy path. When you remove the noise, you're forced to confront what has been buried underneath. All the suppressed pain, the uncomfortable truths, the forgotten dreams, they rise to the surface, and most people aren't ready for that. They'd rather drown in distraction than swim in the still waters of self-awarenessness. But the man who chooses silence embraces it. He sits in the discomfort. He watches his thoughts like passing clouds, and eventually the mind settles, the chaos quiets, and something sacred emerges. Clarity. In that clarity, he begins to see how much of his life was lived on autopilot, how many of his choices were reactions, not decisions, how many of his beliefs were inherited, not discovered, how often he acted from fear rather than truth. And that realization becomes the starting point of his transformation. And the man who walks in silence doesn't need to announce who he is, because he no longer doubts it. He doesn't wear masks to be accepted, because he's finally comfortable in his own skin. His energy speaks for him. His presence carries a weight that cannot be faked, not because he's trying to impress anyone, but because he has nothing to prove. He has discovered that when you stop trying to be something, you become everything you were meant to be. He no longer chases external labels, because he knows the truth of his being exists beyond all definitions. He is not a role, he is not a persona, he is awareness itself, awake, grounded, whole. And here's the most powerful part. In silence, he becomes untouchable. Not in the sense of being isolated, but in the sense of being unshaken. People may still judge him, circumstances may still test him, but none of it defines him anymore. He has rooted his identity in something eternal, something untouched by noise, opinion, or chaos. While the world continues its loud, frantic dance, he walks quietly through it, unaffected, not because he's indifferent, but because he's anchored, not because he's numb, but because he feels deeply and has made peace with everything he feels. Noise tries to define you. Silence doesn't define, it reveals. It reveals who you were before the world told you who to be. And once you've seen that version of yourself, you can never go back. You can't unsee your truth. You can't unhear your own voice. And you won't ever again trade that voice for the approval of others. The man who walks in silence walks in power. Not power over others, but power over himself. And that is the rarest, purest kind of strength. True strength needs no announcement. The loudest in the room are often the weakest. They shout to mask their insecurity, boast to cover their doubts, and perform to distract from their fear of being unseen. But real strength doesn't need an audience. It doesn't parade itself. It simply is. And the man who walks alone in silence understands this in his bones. He doesn't talk about who he is, he becomes it, not through words, but through the quiet, deliberate way he lives. There is a certain kind of presence that doesn't ask for attention, but commands respect. A calmness that speaks louder than shouting ever could. This is the essence of the silent man's strength. It's not the kind that intimidates others. It's the kind that disarms them. It doesn't come from dominance. It comes from deep inner stability. He doesn't impose himself on the world because he doesn't need the world to validate him. He has already validated himself. Most people have been taught to equate strength with control. Control over situations, control over people, control over image. But this man has learned that real power lies in self-mastery, in the ability to stay centered when the world spins wildly, in the refusal to be reactive even when provoked, in the choice to walk away when staying would only cost your peace. He doesn't need to win arguments because he no longer sees life as a battlefield. He's not playing games of ego. He's not caught up in appearances. He's invested in truth, not theatrics. And it's not that he has no anger, fear, or desire. He has all of it. But he knows how to hold it, to observe it without being consumed by it. That's the difference. The weak are tossed around by their emotions like leaves in the wind. The strong, those rooted in silence, can feel without drowning, act without reacting, and love without losing themselves. This kind of strength is earned, not inherited. It's forged in solitude, shaped by stillness, tested by trials no one ever sees. When no one was watching, he built discipline. When no one clapped, he kept moving. When no one believed in him, he believed in himself. That's why he doesn't crave praise. It no longer feeds him. His fuel comes from within. And because he is no longer performing, he becomes real. There is a rare authenticity in him that others are drawn to. They may not understand it, but they feel it. His words are few, but they carry weight. His actions are quiet, but they leave an imprint. He doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks when it matters. He doesn't move to be seen. He moves with purpose. There's a strange paradox at play here. The man who says the least often knows the most. The one who walks away from noise isn't weak. He's wise. Because he's seen through the illusion that the world rewards the loud, but it respects the grounded. And respect, real respect, can never be demanded. It must be earned through presence, consistency, and character. While others chase approval, chase followers, chase the fleeting spotlight, he remains unmoved. He's not interested in being famous. He's interested in being free. Free from the need to explain himself, free from the compulsion to be liked, free from the exhausting dance of masks and performance. He is not hiding. He has simply outgrown the need to be seen. This is the silent power of the man who walks alone. His strength is not in his ability to conquer others, but in his refusal to be conquered by himself. He has mastered the battlefield within, and now nothing outside can break him. He does not roar. He does not flash. He does not chase. And yet he is felt. And in a world addicted to noise, his silence is the loudest thing in the room. People misunderstand silence. They think it means passivity, retreat, or weakness. But silence, when chosen deliberately, is a kind of wisdom. It's a strategic withdrawal from what no longer deserves your energy. The man who walks alone in silence understands this. He's not silent because he has nothing to say. He's silent because he has learned not everything deserves a response. Most people speak just to fill space. They argue to feel in control. They explain themselves to be understood, to be accepted, to be seen. But the silent man has realized something rare. Peace is more valuable than proving a point. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the most precise form of action when noise serves no purpose. He chooses silence the way a warrior chooses when not to draw his sword. Not because he's incapable, but because he sees the battle isn't worth it. He has come to see that people hear only what they are ready to understand. So he no longer wastes energy convincing anyone of anything. He observes, he listens, he waits, and in that space he learns far more than those who speak endlessly. His silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the intentions and insecurities of others. The louder people become, the more he sees them clearly, and still he does not respond, because he knows not every action requires your participation. Not every invitation deserves your acceptance. There is immense power in restraint. It's easy to react. It's easy to defend yourself, to argue, to try and correct those who misunderstand you. But that is exhausting, and more often than not, pointless. The silent man has learned that his worth is not up for debate. He no longer explains himself because he no longer needs to be understood by anyone who cannot meet him at his depth. And in this silence he conserves something sacred, his energy. While others drain themselves trying to maintain appearances, defend their image or fight for validation, he keeps his power close. He does not scatter it. He does not waste it. His silence sharpens it. His silence strengthens it. And because he speaks so little, when he does speak, people listen. His words carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they are rare, measured. Silence also teaches him patience. In a reactive world, patience is a weapon. When others lash out, he waits. When others panic, he watches. In his stillness, he sees what the restless miss. He moves with intention, not impulse. And that makes his actions precise, effective, powerful. People confuse his quiet with indecision, but they are wrong. He is simply calculating. He knows when to speak, when to move, and more importantly, when not to. This man's silence protects him from drama, from emotional traps, from ego games. It builds a boundary no one can cross unless he opens the gate. And he rarely opens it because silence has taught him how to recognize noise long before it reaches him. He doesn't need to argue with disrespect. He doesn't need to explain his boundaries. His silence says, I heard you, I simply don't choose to respond, and that, to most people, is infuriating because they cannot manipulate what does not engage. He has discovered the beauty of being unknown, not in the sense of being invisible, but in the sense of being untraceable by the expectations of others. No one knows what he's thinking, what he's planning, what he truly feels. And that mystery protects his vision, his peace, his power. People speak too soon, reveal too much, invite chaos into their lives through careless words. But not him. He speaks last, if at all, and in that, he always holds the advantage. Silence is not weakness. It is mastery. It is what remains when a man has exhausted the need to impress, defend, or explain. It is his armor, his sanctuary, his discipline. It keeps him light, grounded, and unbothered. While others burn out chasing attention or battling ego wars, he walks quietly, untouched. And in a world that mistakes noise for relevance, his silence becomes the most powerful language of all. The man who walks alone in silence becomes unpredictable, not because he plays games or hides who he is, but because he no longer operates from the patterns others expect. He has detached from the scripts. He has stopped performing. And in doing so, he becomes unreadable, untrackable. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't react the way you anticipate. You can't control a man who isn't dependent on your approval. That's where his mystery is born. Not from secrecy, but from... Most people live their lives in loops. Say this, expect that. Do this, get that response. They are predictable because they're programmed. Stimulus and reaction. Push the right button, get the expected result. But when a man breaks out of this cycle, when he stops responding to every comment, every challenge, every demand for attention, he becomes someone you can't easily place in a box. He doesn't argue. He disappears. He doesn't chase, he observes. He doesn't explain, he evolves. And in that unpredictability, he gains immense power, because no one knows what he's thinking, what his next move is, or what truly affects him. They throw stones and he remains silent. They question his path and he keeps walking. That silence unnerves people. That solitude confuses them. They're used to being able to trigger people to read their reactions, to control outcomes. But this man, he gives them nothing. And in that nothing, he becomes untouchable. See, predictability makes you vulnerable. If people can read you like a book, they can rewrite your pages. They can shape your reactions. But when you no longer operate from the ego, when your actions are chosen, not conditioned, you become your own force, independent, wild, sovereign. The man who walks in silence is not afraid of being misunderstood. In fact, he welcomes it. Let them misjudge. Let them assume. He knows the truth of who he is, and he has nothing to prove. That's what makes him dangerous, not in a violent sense, but in the sense that he cannot be swayed. He doesn't take the bait. He doesn't rise to every provocation. He stays still when the world demands motion. And when he does act, it's calculated, intentional, and unexpected. His power lies in the space between his movements, in the silence between his words, in the patience he exercises before responding. While others rush to react, to explain, to retaliate, he takes his time. He knows that not everything requires a response. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every opinion is worth addressing. His restraint makes him unpredictable, and his unpredictability makes him powerful. That mystery, it's magnetic. People are drawn to what they can't define. They feel his presence, but they can't decode it. They see his calm, but they don't know its source. They sense his confidence, but it isn't loud or boastful. It's silent, rooted, and that makes them curious. Who is he really? What drives him? What is he thinking? And they'll never fully know, because this man is not here to be figured out. He's here to live in alignment with his truth. Quietly, unapologetically, alone, not by force, but by choice. And that choice gives him space. Space to grow, to think, to move in ways others can't anticipate. Because he's not reacting to the world, he's responding to his own inner compass. People often equate mystery with manipulation, but this man manipulates no one. He simply refuses to be manipulated himself. His unpredictability is not a weapon. It's a byproduct of his freedom. He moves how he moves. He speaks when he chooses. And that makes him impossible to control. He has become like the wind, felt, but not grasped. Present, but never pinned down. He leaves no breadcrumbs. He answers no unnecessary questions. He lets people wonder while he keeps building in silence. And that's where his brilliance thrives, in the unseen, the unspoken, the unexpected. The man who walks alone in silence does not seek to impress or confuse. He simply lives true to his nature. And because his nature is no longer dictated by the world cannot predict, contain, or limit him. He has reclaimed his power by reclaiming his silence. And in a world addicted to attention and reaction, the one who chooses stillness becomes the most mysterious presence of all. In a world addicted to noise and performance and approval, the man who walks alone in silence becomes a rare force, calm, unmoved, and untouchable. He is not running from the world, but returning to himself. In his solitude, he finds clarity. In his silence, he discovers power. He does not need applause to feel worthy, nor validation to feel whole. He has stripped away illusion after illusion until what remains is raw, real, and grounded. He no longer explains. He no longer reacts. He no longer plays games designed by those who haven't faced themselves. He walks with intention, speaks with precision, and acts with purpose. You won't find him in the spotlight, but you will feel his presence wherever he goes. Not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. The strength of this man lies not in what he shows, but in what he withholds, not in how loud he is, but in how still he remains. His silence is not emptiness. It is fullness without need. His walk is not lonely, it is sovereign. If you ever find yourself misunderstood, unrecognized, or unseen, do not despair. Walk in silence. Stand in your truth. Let the world speak, and let your silence say everything. Because the man who walks alone in silence walks not in weakness, but in unstoppable power.
Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment, not once, but again and again, when the mind feels overwhelmed, the world too loud, the future uncertain. You sit alone in silence, your thoughts screaming louder than any voice around you. You wonder, how do I endure this? How do I survive what feels unlivable? That moment right there is not a collapse. It's an invitation. Not to break, but to build. Not to flee, but to face. What you seek is not outside. It's not in advice or validation or someone's approval. It's inside, in your mind. The real question is, have you trained it? Most people train their bodies, chase success, build resumes, but the mind, the very source of perception, emotion, and response, remains untrained, undisciplined. That's where chaos begins. So this isn't just a talk, it's a mirror. And if you stay until the end, you won't just understand strength, you'll remember that you already have it. You've simply forgotten. The mind is not your enemy, it is not your weakness, it is not broken, it is wild. Like an untrained horse, it pulls, bucks, panics. But with stillness, observation, and attention, it bows to your presence. You see, you were never meant to conquer the mind through force. You were meant to understand it. Thoughts come and go. They rise and fall. But you are the witness, the sky in which the storms of thought pass. And the moment you realize you are not your thoughts, you become free. This is the foundation of mental strength. But let us go deeper. Pain is inevitable. You will lose. You will be betrayed. You will fall short. But suffering is optional. It is not the event that hurts us. It is our mental story about the event. The expectations, the attachments, the illusions we cling to. Training your mind is training yourself to see clearly, to drop the illusion, to meet reality without the armor of resistance. Most people react. They lash out. They spiral. But stillness is where strength hides. When you no longer chase or run, when you sit with what is not what should be, you grow. In silence, you begin to hear the truth, that everything you ever feared losing was never yours, and everything that truly matters cannot be taken. Mental strength is not about controlling life. It's about flowing with it, adapting, surrendering not as weakness, but as wisdom. The strong mind lets go. It allows. It watches without rushing to fix. It trusts. You've been taught to avoid pain. But what if pain is the teacher? What if the heartbreak, the failure, the breakdown was your initiation? Not punishment, but preparation. The strong mind sees pain as the forge. And in that fire, the weak parts burn away. Let it all burn, the fear, the shame, the need to be understood. Let it burn until what remains is quiet, steady, unshakable. You are not becoming someone new. You are returning to who you were before fear dressed you up in masks, before comparison dimmed your light, before the noise of the world made you forget the strength of your own silence. So here is the truth. Mental strength is not about always feeling good. It's about standing still when things feel bad. It's about breathing when all you want to do is scream. It's about choosing clarity over chaos, truth over illusion, presence over panic. Train your mind like you train a muscle, not in intensity, but in consistency. Every moment you choose not to react, you are building strength. Every time you sit with discomfort, you grow. Every time you witness your thoughts without believing them, you remember who you are. And who you are is far more powerful than you've been told. You are not your thoughts. That single realization, simple as it may seem, is the foundation of mental strength. Most people never truly understand this. They go through life believing that every thought that arises in their mind is a truth, a command, or a definition of who they are. But thoughts are not facts. They are not orders. They are not even always your own. They are echoes, echoes of conditioning, past experiences, memories, fears, and hopes. They are passing phenomena, like clouds drifting across the sky, and just as you would not say the sky is the cloud, you must not say you are the thought. But the problem is, we have been taught the opposite. From a young age, we are told to listen to our minds. We are encouraged to identify with every narrative that arises. If a thought says, I am not good enough, we believe it. If a thought says, everyone is watching me, we shrink. If a thought says, I'll never make it, we give up. In this way, we become prisoners of the very mind that should have been our servant. And in that confusion, we suffer. Deeply, mental strength begins with stepping back and asking, who is the one observing these thoughts? That moment of inquiry changes everything. Because when you step back and become the watcher of thought instead of its slave, you begin to access a deeper intelligence, one that is not reactive, not afraid, not unstable, one that is aware, grounded, present. Thoughts are like waves on the surface of an ocean. They move, they swirl, sometimes they crash, but they are not the ocean itself. The ocean is still beneath the surface. That stillness is you. That's what you forgot. You see, the untrained mind pulls you into every thought, every emotion, like a leaf tossed in a storm. One moment you're confident, the next you're full of doubt. 1 minute you're peaceful, the next you're angry. This is not strength. This is reactivity. To become mentally strong, you must learn to watch your thoughts as they arise without attaching yourself to them. Don't fight them. Don't try to stop them. Simply see them. Observe them. Let them come. Let them go. A thought may say, you're a failure. Watch it. Don't argue. Don't agree. Just notice. It's a mental cloud. It will pass. Another thought may say, you'll never heal. That's okay. Watch it drift by. Another may say, you're not good enough for this. Smile. Let it float. This practice, simple as it sounds, is not easy. It takes time, presence, and discipline. Because the mind is seductive. It wants your attention. It feeds off your energy. It wants to pull you into endless stories. But each time you resist the urge to chase a thought, you grow stronger. Each time you choose presence over panic, you build clarity. Each time you let a thought pass without grabbing it, you are training your mind. People often say, I can't stop thinking, but you don't need to stop thinking. That's not the goal. The goal is to stop believing every thought. The goal is to stop identifying with each passing idea as if it defines you. Thoughts may arise, but you are not required to ride every wave. You can let them be. You can stay rooted. This understanding is not just theoretical, it's practical. In real life, this awareness gives you power. When someone insults you and a thought says, I must respond, I must defend, you can observe it and choose silence instead. When you feel fear before a new opportunity and a thought screams, you'll fail. You can smile and keep going. When your inner critic tries to shame you, you can treat it like background noise. It no longer defines your actions. Over time, you begin to see that the mind is a tool, nothing more. Like fire, it can warm or burn. Like a knife, it can cut fruit or cause harm. The difference lies in the hand that holds it, in the awareness that wields it. The moment you stop treating thoughts as rulers and start seeing them as visitors, you reclaim that power. The mind becomes your ally, not your master. And what happens then? You stop fearing your own mind. You stop running from discomfort. You stop getting lost in every emotion. You develop inner space, the space to choose, to pause, to remain calm when the world is anything but. You walk through pain without collapsing. You face uncertainty without panic. You become the calm in the storm. That is mental strength. And it begins with a quiet, humbling realization. I am not my thoughts. I am the awareness behind them. Suffering is resistance to what is. This truth seems so simple, yet it is the core of every mental battle we fight. Pain, in its purest form, is often brief. A sharp moment, a loss, a disappointment, a heartbreak. But what stretches that pain into suffering is the mind's refusal to accept what has happened. We replay it, we argue with it, we wish it were different. And in doing so, we create a loop, a mental prison where healing is delayed, peace is denied, and strength is buried beneath resistance. Think about it. How many times have you felt overwhelmed, not because of the event itself, but because you couldn't stop thinking, this shouldn't have happened, or why me? The moment something unwanted arrives in your life, a breakup, failure, betrayal, loss, the mind doesn't just experience it, it clings to it, resents it, rewinds it, projects it into the future. This is resistance. And this is where suffering grows. The strong mind is not one that avoids pain. It is one that allows it, accepts it, meets it with honesty and presence. This doesn't mean you have to like what's happening. It means you stop fighting the fact that it is happening. There's a profound difference between pain and the mental story we wrap around it. The breakup is pain. The thought I'll never be loved again is suffering. The job loss is pain. The thought I'm a failure is suffering. The illness is pain. The thought I'm a failure is suffering. The illness is pain. The thought, why is life so unfair? That's suffering. You may think resistance is a form of strength, that by rejecting the pain, you are proving your will. But in truth, it weakens you. It keeps you stuck. It makes you relive the very thing you wish to escape. Acceptance, on the other hand, is not weakness, it is clarity. It is the courage to face reality as it is, without distortion or denial. It is saying, this has happened, I don't like it, but I will no longer fight it. I will meet it as it is. That's when suffering begins to dissolve. This is not about passive resignation. Acceptance is not giving up. It is not pretending everything is fine. It is a deep internal agreement to stop wasting energy on resisting the unchangeable. Once you stop resisting, you can begin responding with presence, with awareness, with conscious choice. Resistance often comes from the illusion of control. We believe we can shape every outcome, control every person, avoid every loss. So when life doesn't obey our expectations, we panic, we rage, we despair. But control is a lie. Life is not meant to be gripped. It is meant to be experienced. And the tighter you hold on, the more life will tear away what you refuse to release. To be mentally strong is to flow with what comes, not because you are indifferent, but because you trust your own capacity to face it. You trust that you can handle the reality of this moment, whatever it contains. When pain arrives, you don't collapse. You breathe. You observe. You allow. You let it pass through you, not consume you. Look at nature. The river does not resist the stone in its path, it flows around it. The tree does not curse the wind, it bends. The seasons do not argue, they arrive and leave in rhythm. In that same way, your mind must learn to stop clinging to what was or panicking about what might be. It must learn to stay with what is fully, gently, honestly. And yes, this practice takes strength. It takes the willingness to sit in discomfort, to feel the pain without numbing it, to say, I do not like this, but I will not resist it. The paradox is that the moment you stop resisting, you begin healing. Suffering lessens. Clarity returns. Inner peace becomes possible again. The root of so much suffering is this, wanting things to be other than they are. But life does not bend to our will. It unfolds as it must. What if, instead of fighting it, you flowed with it? What if, in that flow, you discovered a strength you never knew was there? Mental strength is born in that space where resistance ends and awareness begins. Where you stop saying, why me? And start asking, what now? Where you meet each moment not with fear or denial, but with an open heart and a steady mind. You may not be able to change what happened, but you can change how you meet it. You can release the tension, you can let go of the mental war, and in doing so, you reclaim your energy, your clarity, your strength. Suffering ends where acceptance begins, and it is in that acceptance, raw, real, and honest, that true mental strength is found. The power of stillness over reaction is one of the greatest forms of inner mastery. In a world that glorifies constant response, quick comebacks, instant opinions, and loud declarations, stillness seems like weakness, like passivity. But that's a lie. Stillness is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of control. To be still when chaos erupts is to have full command over your inner world, when the outer world tries to pull you in all directions. Most people live in reaction. Someone says something hurtful, they explode. A plan doesn't work out, they spiral. A fear arises, they immediately believe it. Their inner state is dictated by external conditions. Like a leaf in the wind, they are tossed by every opinion, setback, and doubt. But reaction is not strength. It is a lack of space, a sign that the mind is on autopilot, that awareness has been hijacked by impulse. The stimulus and the response. That space is called stillness. It's not cold, it's not numb, it's awake, it sees clearly what is happening, but it chooses not to move unless movement is necessary. It doesn't defend the ego. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't seek revenge. It rests calm, grounded, centered. When you are still, you are not inactive. You are deeply active within, observing everything, reacting to nothing. This doesn't mean you never speak or take action. It means your action is deliberate, not emotional. It comes from wisdom, not panic. It comes from choice, not programming. The untrained mind lives on edge. It constantly anticipates attack or rejection. It rushes to prove, to explain, to fight. But the trained mind, the strong mind, lives in stillness. It understands that not everything requires a reaction. That silence is often louder than noise. That walking away is more powerful than engaging. That waiting, watching, and letting the dust settle reveals the truth far better than immediate response. Stillness gives you vision. It slows everything down. It allows you to watch your thoughts without being pulled into them. It lets you hear criticism without losing your peace. It gives you time to pause before the old habit kicks in. It gives you distance, and in that distance, you begin to see that most situations are not as urgent as they seem. Most battles are not worth fighting. Most conflicts resolve themselves if you give them room. Reaction is immediate, impulsive, emotional. Stillness is patient, intentional, and aware. Reaction adds fuel to the fire. Stillness allows the fire to burn out on its own. And this isn't just about staying calm for the sake of calm. Stillness protects your energy. Every unnecessary argument, every defensive comment, every emotional outburst, it costs you something. Your peace, your clarity, your dignity. The strong mind preserves these things because it understands their value. Training your mind to choose stillness means learning to wait. It means letting people misunderstand you without rushing to correct them. It means allowing others to speak without always having the last word. It means breathing deeply when every part of you wants to lash out. And it means understanding that just because you feel something intensely doesn't mean you have to act on it. Emotions are not enemies. They are signals. But reacting to every emotional wave keeps you drowning. Stillness is the lifeboat. It allows you to float above the chaos, to feel the storm without becoming the storm. When your mind is still, even the loudest chaos outside cannot disturb the quiet inside. This inner stillness isn't achieved through force. You don't suppress your feelings, you simply observe them. You create space for them. You become a container vast enough to hold any emotion without breaking. And the more you practice this, the stronger you become. You stop fearing your emotions. You stop fearing your emotions. You stop fearing situations. You stop fearing people's opinions because you've realized that your strength doesn't come from how you react. It comes from how you choose not to. Stillness becomes your baseline, your anchor, your sanctuary. When you can sit in discomfort without reacting, when you can watch your mind spiral and yet not follow it, when you can pause even for a second before responding, you've already won. You've already risen above the unconscious patterns that control most people. And from that place of stillness, your actions become powerful. Your words carry weight. Your presence radiates calm. Not because you're pretending to be strong, but because you've trained your mind to be strong. You no longer need to prove anything. You are centered. And in that centering, you become immovable. The next time you feel the urge to react, pause, breathe, be still. And remind yourself, your power is not in the reaction. It is in the silence that chooses when, where, and whether to act at all. Training your mind is not a one-time effort. It is a daily discipline, a quiet, invisible practice that takes place every moment, especially when no one is watching. Just like building a strong body requires repeated physical effort, mental strength is cultivated through repeated inner effort. There is no shortcut, no final destination where you become permanently unshakable. It's not about being fearless all the time or having constant clarity. It's about returning again and again to awareness, even after you've been pulled away by fear, doubt, or distraction. People often think mental strength is something you're either born with or you're not. But this is a misunderstanding. Mental strength is not a fixed trait. It's a skill. And like all skills, it grows through consistent training. That training happens not only in moments of crisis, but in the quiet spaces of daily life. The moments where you're tempted to complain, to give up, to react, to indulge old patterns. That's where the training ground really is. Every day, your mind offers you thousands of invitations to drift into chaos. Thoughts that make you anxious, voices from the past that whisper self-doubt, emotions that push you to react without reflection. Each of these is an opportunity. You don't need to suppress them or get rid of them. You need to learn how to relate to them differently. And that relationship can only change through practice. Mental discipline begins with awareness. It means observing your thoughts instead of believing every one. When you feel the urge to spiral into worry or overthinking and you choose to pause even for a few seconds, you're training your mind. When you feel overwhelmed by emotion, but choose to breathe through it rather than acting out, that's training. When you feel the urge to argue, to seek validation, to complain, but you choose stillness instead, that's your discipline at work. The discipline is subtle. No one will applaud you for it. No one will see the inner work you're doing. But it changes you. It rewires your brain. It replaces old patterns with new ones. And most importantly, it gives you space. Space between the trigger and your response, between the emotion and your action. In that space lies your freedom. You will not always win. You will sometimes lose yourself in the old stories, the ones that say you're not enough, that you'll never succeed, that the world is unfair. But each time you catch yourself and return to awareness, you're building strength. It's not about perfection. It's about returning. Again and again, discipline is the act of remembering. Remembering your power, your center, your ability to choose. The untrained mind runs wild. It reacts, overthinks, panics, judges. It believes every fear, every thought, every impulse. The trained mind does not. It watches, it chooses, it pauses. And in that pause, everything changes. Discipline also means not feeding what weakens you. You must become mindful of what you consume, not just food, but information, energy, conversations. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, chaos, or distractions, your mind becomes scattered, restless, undisciplined. You must protect your mental environment the same way you protect your physical one. Spend time in silence. Reflect. Let your mind breathe. Give it room to heal and grow. Another part of training the mind is accepting discomfort. Growth does not happen in ease. It happens when you are stretched, when your patience is tested, when you feel lost, when you face setbacks. Mental strength is forged in those moments. Not when everything is working, but when nothing is and you still choose presence. When you are in pain but refuse to run. When you are uncertain but choose not to panic. This is the discipline. You won't always feel like doing it. Some days you will want to collapse into distraction, numbness, or old habits. That's okay. What matters is that you notice and gently pull yourself back. This is how the mind learns, not through force or shame, but through repetition and awareness. Discipline also requires honesty. You must be willing to face your inner patterns, even the ones you don't like. The lies you tell yourself, the habits that keep you stuck, the excuses you make. Training the mind means looking at all of it without judgment and saying, this is where I am, but this is not where I have to stay. There's nothing glamorous about daily mental discipline. It's not loud. It doesn't always feel good, but it gives you something far greater than temporary comfort. It gives you resilience, focus, inner peace, the ability to stand still in the middle of chaos and not be moved. Every strong mind you admire was once undisciplined, but someone somewhere chose to show up, to breathe, to observe, to resist the urge to react. And they did it over and over until it became who they were. That choice is available to you now, not tomorrow, not when things calm down. Now, in this moment, mental strength isn't built in a day, but it is built daily. And the discipline you choose in the smallest moments, that's what shapes you. That's what transforms you. That's what makes you unstoppable. Let go of the illusion of control. This is one of the most difficult, yet liberating. It's choosing to plant seeds today without seeing the fruit for months or even years. But when that harvest comes, it changes your entire life. You cannot microwave success. It's baked slowly in the oven of discipline. And those who are willing to wait, to keep working quietly, to persist without applause, those are the ones who succeed. It's important to remember that discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. No one is born with it. It is built one decision at a time. You can start right now. You can choose one area of your life to bring more order into. Maybe it's waking up at the same time every day. Maybe it's committing to read for 10 minutes daily. Maybe it's saying no to one thing that drains your energy. The point is, start small, but start. And when you slip, don't use it as an excuse to quit. Use it as a lesson. Recommit. Because discipline is not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. One of the most misunderstood aspects of discipline is the idea that it's all about sacrifice. But in truth, discipline is not about loss, it's about exchange. You're not just giving up comfort, you're trading it for growth. You're not just denying yourself ease, you're embracing mastery. The pain of discipline is temporary, the reward is lasting, but the pain of regret that lingers far longer. You either suffer the pain of discipline now or the pain of regret later. That is the price. And you must choose which cost you are willing to pay. The good news is, the more disciplined you become, the easier it gets. You build momentum. What once felt hard becomes your new normal. Discipline transforms your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. This identity shift is where true power begins. Because once your identity aligns with discipline, everything else becomes easier. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, should I do this? And instead, you say, this is just what I do. Understand this clearly. Discipline is the foundation of everything meaningful in your life. It is the price of excellence, the path to freedom, and the secret to transforming ordinary habits into extraordinary results. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your discipline. Cultivate it, protect it, and honor it, and you will build a life few dare to dream of. Discipline is not about punishing yourself or living a life of rigid routines. It is about aligning your daily behavior with your deeper desires. The problem with most people is that they only act when they feel motivated, when conditions feel right, or when someone is watching. But true discipline is what you do when no one is looking, when no reward is immediate, and when the task feels difficult, boring, or even hopeless. It's a silent, invisible force that shapes your destiny far more than raw talent, luck, or external validation ever will. Discipline doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows up in small acts, choosing to say no to distractions, pushing through fatigue, rising early, or following through with what you promised yourself. These acts don't make headlines, but they build character, mental strength, and lasting results. Discipline is not about having everything under control. It's about knowing how to respond when things spiral out of control. Most people collapse under stress because they never trained their mind to operate under pressure. Discipline is that internal system that keeps you steady, even when life gets messy. It reminds you of your standards when your emotions beg you to compromise. It pushes you forward when your doubts pull you back. And in a world full of excuses, distractions, and shortcuts, discipline remains the quiet weapon of those who win without bragging, succeed without complaining, and grow without applause. The beauty of discipline is that it doesn't require inspiration, motivation, or even belief. You can feel like quitting, you can be afraid, you can doubt yourself, and still show up. You can be tired, emotionally drained, uninspired, and still honor your commitments. Because discipline, unlike motivation, is not a feeling, it's a decision. It is a system you build inside your mind that says, I do what needs to be done regardless of how I feel. That kind of mindset is rare. It's what separates those who chase potential from those who realize it. Talent might open the door, but discipline keeps you in the room long enough to build mastery. Most people wait for clarity before acting, but discipline acts, and then clarity follows. You can't think your way into greatness. You have to act your way there. You don't become a writer by thinking about writing. You become a writer by sitting down every single day, putting words on a page, even when the inspiration is absent and your mind is screaming that it's not good enough. You don't get fit by waiting until you feel like going to the gym. You go, even when you're sore, even when you're tired, even when no one notices your effort. Because discipline isn't about outcome, it's about process. And when you fall in love with the process, results become inevitable. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It doesn't demand that you be perfect, it demands that you be consistent. That's where most people fall short. They seek bursts of extreme action instead of steady effort. They romanticize intensity and overlook consistency. But the truth is, doing something for 5 minutes every day will beat doing something for 5 hours once a month. The small daily wins compound. They build identity. Every time you show up for yourself, even in a small way, you tell your mind, I am someone who keeps going. That identity shift is powerful, and discipline is the vehicle that creates it. You don't need to be disciplined in every area of your life overnight. Start small. One habit, one behavior, one promise to yourself. Honor it, protect it, defend it. Let it grow into a standard you no longer break, then add more. Discipline doesn't thrive in chaos, it thrives in clarity. So be clear about what matters. Be intentional about your time, your choices, your priorities. Eliminate what drains you. Cut off what distracts you. Because every yes you say to comfort is a no to growth. And every act of discipline is a vote for your future self. The most powerful thing about discipline is that it teaches you self-respect. When you live without discipline, you betray yourself in small ways every day. You say you'll start tomorrow and never do. You say you'll eat better, work harder, wake earlier, and you don't. Over time, that erosion of self-trust becomes heavy. But discipline repairs that. Every time you act with integrity to your goals, you prove to yourself that you are trustworthy, that your words mean something, that you are not a slave to your impulses, that your future matters more than your temporary feelings. If you're tired of starting over, stop quitting. If you want to be proud of yourself, do the hard things quietly and consistently. If you want to be free, become disciplined. Because the most liberated people in the world are not the ones who do whatever they want. They are the ones who have the power to say no, the strength to choose what's right over what's easy, and the patience to build slowly when others chase shortcuts. Discipline will never fail you if you don't fail it. The conclusion of the entire speech ties together the fundamental truth that lasting transformation is born from discipline, not desire. In a world that constantly seduces us with instant gratification and hollow motivations, it is easy to be trapped in cycles of temporary change. But real progress, the kind that rewires your mind, reshapes your habits, and rebuilds your identity, emerges when you stop waiting to feel ready and begin acting consistently. Discipline is not glamorous. It's often lonely, repetitive, and silent. But it is in that silence where strength grows. The discipline to show up, to work even when unseen, to stay grounded when the world offers distractions, that is where power is built. The speech reminds us that everything we want, clarity, confidence, peace, success, is on the other side of discipline. Not because discipline guarantees success, but because it transforms you into the person who no longer depends on motivation. It teaches that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And systems are built with discipline, day by day, thought by thought, action by action. In the end, it's not about being perfect or always strong. It's about being committed to becoming better, regardless of how you feel. That's how the weak version of you dies. That's how the best version of you begins to live.